Good morning and Happy New Year. Welcome to White Bear Unitarian Universalist Church. It's good to be together, a community of youth, adults, and children sharing the values of courage, reverence, and compassion. I'm Cecilia Dodge, and my pronouns are she, her. I warmly invite you to join Cyber Social Hour, which begins 5 minutes after the postlude. And for those of you here in the building, we'll have our usual 20 minutes of self-facilitated social hour back in the Emerson alcove. You're going to notice today on the screens and in the Soul Work Center that we have fun, colorful versions of the order of service for people of all ages to follow on with what's happening. They also connect back to what happens in our religious education classrooms. We want to remind you about the Martin Luther King Jr. Breakfast next Monday, January 16th. More information is on the church website. This afternoon, Reverend Jack will be hosting a Membership 2 class from 12:30 to 2 p.m. Please RSVP if you plan to attend. There's a link in the chat box for those of you attending online. This Wednesday, January 11th, marks the return of supper and soul work. These evenings of fellowship and food provide all ages with a chance to connect midweek, share a meal, participate in various activities or special programming, and most importantly, be together. Meals will be prepared by a cook team, which always needs volunteers, and with an occasional potluck. For more details, please see the website. And watch the e-news for information about the many activities at the church this month. Welcome to our church. Together we grow our souls and serve the world in love.
Come in. Come into this place which we make holy by our presence. Come in with all your vulnerabilities and strengths, fears and anxieties, loves and hopes, for here you need not hide, nor pretend, nor be anything other than who you are and who you are called to be. Come into this place where we can touch and be touched, heal and be healed, forgive and be forgiven. Come into this place where the ordinary is sanctified, the human is celebrated, the compassionate is expected. Come into this place. Together, we make it a holy place. I am Reverend Sarah, and I use she, her pronouns. I want to make sure you all know that our Soul Work Center is right over here, and so our kids are going to be running around on this side. If you want to go over there, you're welcome to it. There's all kinds of fun stuff to do, right? Say yes over there, parents. Yes, okay.
I'm Reverend Jack, and my pronouns are he, him. I'm not sure how many of you know this, but I absolutely love puzzles. I'm talking all kinds of puzzles: jigsaw, crossword, brain teaser, logic puzzles. My partner's parents know this about me, so they got me a sweet gift of a puzzle made out of bamboo for Christmas this past year. I also got myself a little Christmas gift. Maybe you've seen these before. It's basically a big flat board on which to do jigsaw puzzles. You can put the board on top of your table and work on your jigsaw for a while. And then when you need the table for other things like dinner or another puzzle, you can just cover the board, move it off the table, and slide it under your couch or on some other flat surface. The benefit of having a board like this is twofold. First, the board is in itself a space big enough to hold the entirety of the puzzle. There's much debate in the jigster community, or among enigmatologists, as Will Shortz calls puzzlers, but many of us start a jigsaw puzzle by putting together the edge pieces first. In essence, we are setting the boundaries, forming the frame within which the magic will happen. This practice feels a lot like covenant work. At the beginning of all of our small groups here at WBUUC with youth and adults, we do a similar thing. We set the guidelines and the best practices that we want to employ with each other to create a safe and nurturing space for building community. And then the puzzle, or that sense of community, comes together within that frame, and it is beautiful. The second benefit of a puzzle board is that your puzzle space can be adaptable and portable. It can adapt to changing circumstances, just like a covenant remains a dynamic agreement, which can be edited and adapted as needed. So we light the chalice this morning for the power and beauty of well-constructed covenants that remain dynamic and adaptable. Please join me in the opening words. Love is the spirit of this church, and service is its law. This is our great covenant, to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth in love, and to help one another. Our opening hymn is number 1008, When Our Heart is in a Holy Place, in the teal softcover hymnal. Please rise and body your spirit.
Good morning. My name is Amy and my pronouns are she, her. And as you may have noticed, this morning I don't have a story for you. I have something a little different in mind for all of us. I'm going to invite us all to play a game inspired by a colleague, Laura Bogle. And I need about 6 to 10 volunteers to help me with this game this morning. You can raise your hand and come forward and line up behind Reverend Jack, right over here. We're going to make a line right up this aisle right here, towards the back of the room. Excellent. So maybe space out a little bit. You need a little bit of space between you so that the line reaches all the way up that aisle towards the back of the room, towards that door. So maybe take 2 big steps back, y'all. There we go. All right. Looking good. All right, so you all see I have a volleyball here, so we all know the rules, so let's play the game. It's get the ball to the back of the room as fast as you possibly can. Ready, set, go. Oh, wait, sorry. I forgot to tell you the ball can't actually touch the floor, Reverend Jack. Let's try that again. All right, ready, set, go. Oh, wait, I'm sorry. I forgot to tell you, actually, everybody has to touch the ball on the way back. Let's try that again. Okay.
Amy, I have a question.
You have a question and you just happen to have a microphone there with you, Reverend
I don't
Jack?
know where it came from.
Wow.
I mean, we
How
didn't know the
convenient.
rules to begin with. That would have been really helpful.
Oh, you don't know the rules. I guess that might be helpful, wouldn't it, to know the rules of the game before we play it. That's a great point that you just happened to unrehearsed bring to my attention. Thank you. That's right, because a game's rules allow us to be playful and creative and to have fun together. It allows us to have fun within the boundaries of the room or the board game or puzzle or the video screen that we're playing on. Even in cooperative games like this one, where we're working together to achieve a goal, it might be helpful to have an understanding together of what's expected of us. So let's try this instead. In our cooperative beach ball game, let's establish some agreements. Our goal is to get to the ball to the back of the room as fast as possible without letting it touch the floor. Everyone gets a turn and no carrying it. So by no carrying it means your feet have to stay planted. You can't just do that. Yeah. Are there any other agreements or rules we should make? Yes, Fiona. You can do that as long as you're not moving your feet and carrying it. Magnus, yes. You can throw the ball to each person one at a time. That's great. A great way to make sure everyone's included. What other rules should we make as we're playing this game? Should we be careful? Yeah, let's be careful. Yeah. Yeah, and get it to the back of the room as fast as possible. Are we ready? Thumbs up if you're ready. Ready, set, go. Whoop, whoop, whoop. There we go. Ready, set, go. Make sure everyone gets a turn. There we go. Awesome. Look at them go. Fantastic. All right, yeah. All right. Thank you all for playing my game. I really appreciate it. You all can head back to your seats. Thank you. Let's give them all another hand. Thank you. So I'm going to invite us all into just a breath. So the reason we introduced this game this morning is because we're going to ask you all and us all to think a little bit about our congregational life and our work in the world as Unitarian Universalists. And we thought it might be helpful to introduce this through a little bit of play. We want to wonder together about how working together to establish goals, expectations, and boundaries within our communities can help us feel safe enough physically, spiritually, and emotionally to learn, grow, and have fun together, and why this work is important. So spoiler alert, our word of the day is going to be covenant. You might want to remember that. And you might see some of the colorful paper and markers spread throughout all of the rows here today. We will get to those, I promise. But first, I'm going to invite you all to take a breath and just find a comfortable position. You can close your eyes if that feels comfortable to you. And take another breath. We're going to invite you to take a few moments to just imagine what it is that holds you here at WBUUC. What have you experienced here that helps you feel safe enough to do the work of growing and serving and playing together in this community? In what ways do you feel cared for here? In what ways do you help care for others? And so while the music plays and we all ponder this, feel free to sit comfortably in your seat or to move around if that's what feels comfortable to you.
As Unitarian Universalists, we say that we are bound together not by creed, but by covenant. This means that we might all believe different things about the big questions in life, beliefs about a higher power, where we come from, where we are going, good and evil. But we understand that we are responsible to one another in what we believe and how we act on those beliefs. So we create promises together to help name how we aspire to live and how we hope to care for ourselves and one another in community. And then we try our very best to live into those promises every day.
We call this our covenant. We make covenants in our congregations, in our classrooms. Sometimes we have spoken and unspoken covenants in our friend circles, in our families, and other communities. They're promises that we make together that name how we hope to be in right relationship. How we hope to be and care for one another. Covenants, unlike rules, are built together. That means that each of us gets to name what we need to be physically, emotionally, and spiritually safe enough to do the work of community together, to grow and serve together.
This means that as more people join our communities or as our own needs change, so do our covenants. Covenants are living and they bind us together. You may have heard us talk in the past about the paper chain covenants our children and youth make in their circles. And so when we do this, we invite our children, youth, and their facilitators to write down one promise on a slip of paper and then to add it to the chain. We ask, what do you need to feel physically, emotionally, and spiritually safe in this space so that we can grow and learn and have fun together? Or, what promises can we make to care for ourselves and one another in this community? How do we aspire to be in community?
We ask that these are promises about what we will do rather than what we won't do. For example, instead of saying, don't interrupt one another, we might say, practice careful listening. Or instead of, don't say mean things to each other, we might say, be kind. The first week that we gather together, we spend lots of time thinking about our covenants, and then we make it a point to make space each week to add to the covenant if there is something else that needs to be added. We also make space for wondering how we might get back into covenant when our promises have been broken. We wonder together how we can carefully and lovingly do the messy work of oops and ouch that comes along with being humans in community with one another.
And so this morning, we're inviting this particular community within our greater community to make a paper chain covenant. You can see what we put together from the first service right down here. The first step in creating this covenant is to find a strip of paper and a marker in the basket to the end of the pews or at the front, actually just at the end of the pews, to take a moment then to write down one promise to add to our community covenant. One way that you hope we'll care for one another in this community. And after you're done, just hang on to that strip of paper because we'll do something with it soon. If you're joining us from Zoom, I want you to go ahead and type your word or phrase into the chat box and we'll add them to strips of paper to add to the chain as we go. So take the time to write out what you would like to do, and I can go ahead and we'll help each other find the papers and the pens that we need for this.
This congregation is sustained by the generosity of people who call this place home. By giving to this morning's offering, you are giving life to the programs and services that help form and grow this community. We'll pass the baskets now. You can also donate on the WBUUC webpage, send a check or leave a check in the lockbox outside the front office, or use the text to give option in your order of service or in the Zoom chat box. Whichever way you give, thank you for your generosity and your faith in this life we live together.
Recently, most of the staff here at WBUUC attended a workshop with a UU activist and leader named Paula Cole Jones. She is an African-American, amazing woman who is a member from childhood of the All Souls Church of DC. We all agreed that it was an insightful and intriguing workshop that brought new perspective to our work, and that is why we're bringing it to you today. She also works very strongly on the 8th Principle Project, and we'll learn more about that next week in our service. So the idea, she says, of community of communities, this is what she's bringing to us, is that each church is already made up of communities, like the folks who are in the music program and the families who are in religious education and those that meet about social justice. For many people, belonging to those small groups is what helps us connect to the larger congregation and feel a connection to the larger whole. That's why we focus on things like having small group ministry, like theme circles and small classes that are ongoing and Wellspring, things like that, that really connect people to one another. We often, though, belong to more than one community. We're not just people who do music, we're also people who do justice, and we do both or overlap in many, many different ways. So all of those connections really strengthen our connection to the larger whole. But what Paula Cole Jones wants us to understand is that most of our congregations are functioning as community of individuals, not as community of communities. So what does that mean? It means that sometimes we function as individuals who don't necessarily consider the needs of those around them or other parts of community. We sometimes make decisions that focus on what serve us the best, or we can get into a consumerist mindset, which allows people to take without giving back and allow people to make demands that are harmful to others in the congregation. But in the model of communities, each smaller community is accountable to the other smaller communities, which then the large community is accountable to. In community of communities, each one in the whole gets to have their voice and input into the larger community, while the larger community isn't then dominated by a few outspoken individuals. And now I see a lot of glazed eyes because that was a lot of communities. But what it really means is that this model demands mutuality and it demands consent. And each smaller community is given the opportunity to choose their own representation, which means that each group has an investment in this process. To Paula Cole-Jones, the concept is a push to be intentional about how we design our relationships with each other. To be intentional about how we design our relationships with each other. It's about integrity and agency. It's about mutuality, consent, and creating something together, not just being served by the community, but also being present and creating and serving and giving back as well. It's about people coming together with their gifts to make something together. Now, we know from being in community that there are times when it feels like family, like joy, like friendship, play, laughter, but also there are times when it's struggle and challenging. What makes community fertile ground for growth is that it has both. We are not all the same, and it's a blessing to have different needs and to have creative conflict. This means conflict that helps us learn how to be together even better. The model of community means that we strive to find well-being between the communities, making sure that groups don't need to compete for the well-being they desire. The first principle of Unitarian Universalism affirms and promotes the inherent worth and dignity of every person, and community of communities asks us to believe in the inherent worth and dignity of every community. If we translate this into how do we bring diversity into our congregation, as Paula Cole-Jones asks us to do, it means that we have to start to be aware and willing to shift the larger community to honor the inherent worth and dignity of all communities, especially the ones that aren't as well represented. In order to make our larger community the most welcoming, full of integrity and mutual respect, we need to be willing to change. So today we decided to try and show you what it could look like to be a community that has many interlocking circles of communities with different needs and desires. Now, earlier in the service, you considered words or phrases that would be a way that we care for one another to create our covenant chain. Now, in a couple of minutes, we're going to take the time to work together. We're actually taking the time in the service to connect the chain links to each other. So there's one caveat to this exercise. We're making a covenant chain, but it can't be our finalized covenant because the way we're doing this, not everyone will get a chance to agree on what the covenant holds because we're not sharing individually what each covenant strip says. So there's no informed consent, which means that we can't agree all together at this point, but it does still illustrate this beautiful chain of covenant. In the next few minutes, I want you to work together to join the links that you created with other people's links. Of course, I left mine down there, so I will have to go get it to give you the explanation. How about you come up and show me? Okay. Thank you. We didn't write this out very well the first service, but this one is going to be better. So what you do is you pull the little plastic off the gluey stick, and then you put it together in a circle, and then you put the next one in together. And you want to make sure that yours has two that it's connected to before you finish gluing it up, so that each chain just keeps connecting and connecting. So first, you're going to connect to the people who are closest to you. And then you're going to take that chain and connect it to the people who are further away. And then you're going to connect it, and then we're all going to end up with one big long chain. And if the folks up in the balcony, you want to do yours and have one person come and bring it down, that would be great. All right, so we have a question. April has a question. Have the words showing outside if you can. If that doesn't work, just either way is good. Great. Thank you.
I'm Nico, and my pronouns are they, them. For just a moment, take in this beautiful, huge, long covenant that we've just created together. Covenants like these are great at calling us to always do our best to live up to the promises we've made to one another, but they do not actually give us the power to not make mistakes and never fall short. So we might add a promise to our covenant to hold one another accountable. And that means that I trust you to tell me when I am falling out of covenant, and you trust me to respond by changing my actions and asking for help so we can get back into covenant together. And I trust the same in reverse. But sometimes we notice that the community as a whole is making the same mistakes over and over again. So what do we do then? Let's see if we can find the answer from a person named Macy who lived in a house. Outside of her house were all kinds of signs, kind of like the ones we have facing the outside of this church building. The signs said things like, "All are welcome here," and "Black Lives Matter," and "Care for the Earth." She also had more practical signs like "Ring the doorbell before entering," and "Please wipe your shoes on the mat." And all of these signs were placed in preparation for Macy's friends to come over for a party. There was also a crack in the sidewalk right in front of the door to Macy's house, a crack that made just enough of a bump to trip people as they walked by. Macy didn't notice the bump until, whoops, ouch, her first guest stubbed their toe and almost fell. "Are you okay?" Macy said. "I'm so sorry about that bump." One by one, Macy's guests entered. One by one, they stubbed their toes as they tripped over the bump, and Macy apologized until her throat was sore. After all her guests had gone home for the evening, Macy decided to add another sign to the front of her house. "Watch your step," it said. "There's a bump." The next time Macy threw a party, the new sign made sure that not a single one of her guests tripped over that bump, and by her next party, she had had time to redo her sidewalk and get rid of the bump altogether. There are parts of our covenant that we as a community consistently fail to live up to. We stub our toes one after another over and over again. Luckily for us, covenants are living documents and we get to shape them in ways that are helpful to us. So when we notice that we keep messing up about the same thing, we can add an extra link to our covenant to remind us to work hard on meeting that aspiration. In a minute, I'm going to ask you to write again. So first, take some time to think about the things in our covenant that we as a community are consistently tripping over, the parts of our covenant that we're not yet good at meeting. So the prompt for you to write this time is, what do I need an extra reminder to work hard on in order to lift this community and all of the smaller communities within it to the best that it can be? What do I need an extra reminder to work hard on so this community can be the best that it can be? So as the music plays, we'll write that reminder, that aspiration in the chat if you are on Zoom, and on a second paper chain link if you are in the space, and you can go ahead and connect those together with your neighbors, which you already know how to do because we just did it, and we'll add those chains to this larger chain after that.
It's beautiful. Thank you for your work. All these colors, all these promises, all these aspirations. Take a moment, take it in. And let's pause for a moment of prayer and meditation. Gathered together as we are right now, about 100 and so people in the room and 30 households on Zoom. Feel free to close your eyes and breathe deeply with me for 2 steady breaths. Notice the ways that your body is being supported right now. And notice also the tendrils of connection to this beloved community that are woven together today. As you feel the room around you slow down and settle into a moment of stillness, feel that same sense of stillness and slowness within yourself. Notice the expansiveness of your lungs as you breathe deeply the breath of life. As we walk along the path of today, we notice the swirling dust of snow, the biting winter wind, the shuddering brown leaves still clinging to their almost empty branches. We feel the sunshine on our skin, doing its best to warm us, and we try our best to stay in this moment. We feel connected to our past, to our ancestors, to those who survived the previous winters. And we also look forward to our future, the future of our next generations, and those who will survive the winters to come. Finding ourselves in this interwoven blanket of existence, we find comfort. All of us bring some combination of joys and sorrows into this moment, and this morning we honor that complexity. In this time of prayer and meditation, we don't expect easy answers or magical solutions. We pray together so that we can feel the effects of being a tight-knit community who holds our beloved others' concerns. When our neighbor suffers, we suffer. When our neighbor celebrates, we celebrate. This morning, our congregation is holding in prayer Meredith Spector. She is 2 weeks out of knee replacement surgery and doing well. She is deeply grateful for the encouragement and services provided by her community in Stillwater and by this community. She says thanks. Eileen Simonson. Eileen broke her pelvis in 2 places over the holidays, and she is recovering at Capitol View at Regions Hospital. Prayers of continued healing and encouragement are welcome. And now into this stillness and out of it, we speak aloud the names of those people we want to hold in light and love. Knowing that together we can hold and carry more than we can alone. Make it so, and amen. Our closing hymn is number 1028 in the teal softcover hymnal, The Fire of Commitment. Please rise in body or spirit and join in singing.
Thank you.
Whenever we spend time together, we are changed by one another. As we close today, reflect back on this service and all that we've experienced and created together. Think of a word that names what you're taking with you today and hold it in your head for a moment. Now, in a moment, I'll invite you to say it aloud into the space where you are, wherever you are. What is it you're taking with you today? We'll say it on 3. 1, 2, 3. Grateful for being here, grateful for being here together. Go in peace. Amen.